Well, it was part of their
I went out in my yard.
tourism package for the whole region.
Most of what I was doing, which is trying to dig out.
I think most of the stuff about Cranberry Meadow was
A couple of times I signed it right
I
now.
think Kate
because I
was
sent it
coming.
to Charlie.
I said, just
She
really
was
not-
It was really sweet green, wasn't it?
All set?
And there
We're on the, all right. Good evening, everybody. We're on here. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for March 21st, 2023. I'm Tyler Ward. We also have fellow Select Board members Bill Taylor and Bill Kennedy at the table. Some members of the Budget Committee will be introduced later, I guess. Nicole McStay, our Town Administrator, is here with me, and Ally Croyd's Assistant to the Town Administrator is over there taking our minutes. We are on air, so if anybody has any questions or comments they'd like to make, please just state your name for the record. We'd love to hear from everybody. Let's see, our agenda this evening. We're going to consider an amendment to the code of the Town of Peterborough pursuant to RSA 41:14-B, number 166, Recreation Facilities Rules and Regulations. And then we have some appointments. Lisa Koziell-Betz and Kate Coon were requests to apply to a CDFA Community Center grant, and also a request for approval for revised Peterborough Rec Committee bylaws. And then we have a visitor this evening, Cinde Warmington, our Executive Councilor, and Donnie. Welcome. And then at 5:30, the Budget Committee, hopefully have a quorum, will join us and we'll review the draft warrant and vote to recommend or not recommend some petition warrant articles that came in. And then we have minutes from February 28th and March 7th to vote on. All right, up first, Lisa, you'll be presenting our fee discussion.
It's at least 75% of our agenda.
Tyler, can you open the public hearing just officially?
Oh, it is a public hearing.
Yes.
I make a motion that we open a public hearing regarding RSA 41:14B.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you for the reminder. We are now in official public hearing.
Official public hearing. My name's Lisa Koziell-Betz. I'm the Recreation Director for the Town of Peterborough, and I would like to present to you a change for the code book. We'd like to increase the non-resident sticker price and change a facet of it. Up to now, we issued 125 stickers a year, and last year they were $150 a pop. This year, we'd like to take that 125, but only issue 100 season passes a year at $155 a pop. So that's a price increase of $5 a sticker, and take the remaining 25 stickers and do daily passes and charge $20 a day. So people would register the day of, not before. And if we had a really hot weather forecast coming in, we reserve the right to reduce those stickers so we don't get an overload of the daily stickers, the 20 visits on top of, or the 25 visits on top of the 100. And that's my request of you folks.
Any questions?
Zero.
I don't want to be constrained. But how good is the, first of all, how many of those stickers did we sell last year?
107.
So we didn't sell all of them out anyway. There was a lot of pressure for daily passes.
There have been a lot of requests, yes.
And how is compliance? People are,
Compliance, we can do a better job on monitoring it. We know that going into next year, or this coming season. We're trying.
yeah, I know that's off topic a little bit, but it is a concern of mine that so many people take advantage of that situation.
We're trying.
Yeah.
Of course, you figured out the numbers that this makes more sense than what we had previously tried. It's, how many years have we been doing this now?
Oh, wow.
We've been doing it for quite a while.
Quite a while, yeah.
Yeah. Well, but it wasn't too long ago we raised the rates, right?
Just last year, it was raised to
Right.
150.
Right.
So that's why the small bump is here.
Right. Yes.
Ron McIntyre, just a quick question. For the day passes, where would users pick them up? At the pond, at Cunningham Pond, or at the rec center?
It depends on how you register for it. If you register, excuse me, if you register online, you'll get a receipt with a big date on it. so you can just throw it right on your dashboard, and that'll be easy. If you register by cash or check, or you don't have a printer at home, you can show your phone with the receipt, and we will just issue you a blue pass for the day, and we just write the date on it. So that's how it happens.
But we won't be taking any money at the pond.
No.
I was
Well, we take
volunteer
money
for
at the
that job.
pond for kayaks, kayak
But-
rentals and
right.
stand-up paddleboards, but
Right.
not for Cunningham Pond stickers, no.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about summer long, I'm talking about day passes.
I'd rather not have a lot of money down there. We can see how it works, but I'd rather not. I'd rather go through the office.
Any other questions? Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
To accept the changes as asked?
As.
How much would the day passes cost per day?
$20 a day.
$20 a day.
Second.
Any further discussion? Anybody come think of anything you want a second? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Well done, Lisa.
Thanks.
Thank you, thank you.
And with that, I will make a
Yeah.
motion to close the public hearing.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's official in the books now.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And now I'd like to welcome Lisa back. All right.
Okay, we were made aware of this maybe a month ago, maybe less. But CDFA grant, Community Center Investment Program. Kate and I went to the first presentation. There are 2 webinar presentations. We've already gone to the first one. The second one is coming up March 23rd, on Thursday. So basically, it's a $20 million investment grant using the American Rescue Plan Act funds to improve the infrastructure in New Hampshire. The max award is $1 million. The minimum award is $100,000, and they expect a 15% match. It's intended to rehab, expand, or build community centers, and it's administered by the Governor's Office of Emergency Relief and Recovery. So the community center serves an awful lot of populations. Not only does it serve the middle recreational purposes, the seniors, youth, and adults, but it's also home to the Peterborough Food Pantry. It's a voting location, home to Southern New Hampshire Services, and it's our it's PES's, Peterborough Elementary Schools, and SKIP's, School Kids in Peterborough, emergency secondary location, in case they need to evacuate. But it's also rented privately. Family gatherings, local schools do for their sports when they don't have the capacity to do so. We have outside sport organizations like the local travel soccer group and local nonprofit organizations. Timeline for the grant is really quick. Second, like I said, the informational is March 23rd. We need to have a Type 2 energy audit that needs to be done prior to satisfy the CDFA's energy policy. I do have a copy of that, if the board could look at it and sign it, for them to do an audit on our building. It's a $2,450 audit that Eversource will cover. But we need that to go forward with this grant. So I've got that sheet of paper with me to be approved. Okay, so
Let me ask you about that though. Is there a firm that's going to get in here in time and actually do that audit?
Mhm.
Oh, so you've scheduled something already?
Mhm.
Oh, perfect.
Yep, Margaret Dillon is coming,
Okay.
and because her schedule is so packed, I'm going to meet her on a weekend to
Great.
get it done. So it will happen.
I know that those services are
Yep.
very
No,
competitive.
it will happen. Application becomes available on Friday, the 24th, and then by the 21st, we need to have it in by 4 p.m. So it's a quick turnaround. The decision will be finalized in May, and the contracts will be awarded in June. And they really want it pretty much ready to go. So thank goodness we did the building envelope last year. That's a huge help. It's a huge help to Margaret right now. So the objectives of the grant: reinvest in public physical infrastructure. We need that. Advancing of significant energy efficiency and renewable elements. It's very breezy. The PCC needs a new roof and a whole new electrical upgrade before we even think about the HVAC.
Don't forget windows.
And windows,
Yeah,
yes, yes. And the money's going into the community center needs to have a significant impact on the community, demonstrate readiness and capacity. Now, I cannot fully answer that for you right now, but I will know better by Thursday after our second webinar. Shows need. I have need dating back to 2010. Encourage development of effective and durable collaboration. We collaborate with many groups, and we can probably expand on that as we go forward. And service target populations. Part of this was securing match funds where they want 15%. Back in 2018, the rec committee approved $100,000 to go towards lighting, HVAC, and redoing the floor. The reason why that hasn't been spent yet is because I can't see fixing tertiary issues when primary issues may affect the tertiary issues negatively. And the rec revolving fund, it's grown over time. And between the Isabel Miller and the rec revolving fund, we will have enough money to make that 15% match, whether it's $100,000 or $1 million, depending on how it works out.
So there's 50,000 in the revolving fund.
Yes.
And there's additional money in Isabel Miller that's needed.
That's true. So, from the report that was done in June of 2022, I just took the high priority items, because just the high priority items came to a $1.2 million bill, 1.3. The total cost, if you include high, low, and medium priority, came to $2.2 million. But that's where your windows are, Bill. The replacement of the roof windows and exterior doors, electrical, mechanical ventilations, air conditioning, CO monitoring, the pipe insulation is going to need asbestos, the windows are going to need asbestos remediation, and some external things like the joint sealants and window lintels. So I think we can
You can show need.
show me. It's kind of there. Okay, so priorities. We would be looking at the high list priority, just like I showed you, and logically spend and chart it out in the grant. So like I mentioned earlier, it's not wasting money because you're not putting the cart before the horse sort of situation. An example of this would be replacing the roof would be a priority before we upgrade or before we look at an HVAC system, because you need the roof to put the HVAC on. In my mind, would be silly. We also need to upgrade the electrical system before the HVAC system is even looked at. So, my question to the board is, would you be willing, in your support of us going forward with this grant and applying for it, and would you be willing to sign off on the level 2 energy audit? And I can give you a copy of that right now.
Any questions?
Nope. Nicole, would you have to sign that stuff?
Actually, you could authorize Lisa to sign both.
But I make a motion that we,
What?
what?
See,
What if
this
someone
is
in the
the-
audience does not
Oh.
want us to go through the grant?
Oh, you're right.
Does anybody have
Right.
any questions? or-
Anybody object to getting free money?
Potentially.
Right.
Okay, so-
Potential.
Okay, yeah, you started a motion, sorry, but yeah.
I'm
Right.
just
Does
giving you
anybody
that to
object?
see it.
Yeah, all right, so,
We don't need to authorize you to sign this because we're signing it.
You can authorize her. And I think it might actually be
Well,
cleaner
this-
because usually they call the person who is the
Oh, right.
author, who is the
Good
signer.
idea.
there's probably gonna be a number of things to get signed. Well, what's the name of it? I would make a motion that we approve Lisa Koziell-Betz and,
There we go.
You changed it
There's the
right
name
off
of
the
it. Community,
to apply for a Community Development Finance Authority Community Center Investment Program grant and authorize Lisa Koziell-Betz to sign any and all necessary paperwork.
I'll second.
Related to this.
Right. Well, I think that's,
All right, so a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Good work so far. This is
well, thank you.
encouraging.
do we need to sign
Thank you
this?
very much. No, I will sign it because you just said that
Yeah,
I
I was
could
gonna
sign
say, it
it.
isn't room for all three of us.
So I think we're good. I'll sign it.
Here you go, look at it.
Yes.
This is what you want.
Oh. The price is right.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Good. All right. Thank you,
Next.
Lisa. Up next,
Lisa.
Cindy. Oh, right. The bylaws. Welcome back, Lisa.
Long time no see. A request for approval of the revised PRC bylaws. They have not been revised, you got a copy in your packet. They've not been revised since 2007. They should be revised every 2 years. So the PRC went through it and made their adaptations. We gave it to Nicole. Nicole passed it by the town's attorney. And now it's before you for acceptance.
Were there major changes? Are there any highlights we need to see, such as?
We whittled it down a
They can take over the
lot.
town?
I think there was
Yes.
4 pages taken out in total.
Yeah.
It was significant revision.
I saw the whole process, it was painstaking. For no real major change. But it needed to be done.
Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask about that process or anything else?
I'll make a motion to approve the revised PRC bylaws.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Oh,
All
sorry.
that work.
I
Took
did have a
3
question.
seconds to go through.
I know, isn't that amazing?
So about meeting protocol, there's a line in here, this is section, sorry, I should ask before we approve it. Procedures, section B, line 5A. In the event of a disagreement or objection to the procedures pursued by the chair, Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, shall constitute the authority. Now, does any town government ever actually use Robert's Rules officially? It's just kind of a guideline on how to run meetings, right?
Many other towns actually
In
use
New
Robert
Hampshire.
rules officially, yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question answered? Glad we approved that. All right. Thanks, Lisa.
Well, thank you so much.
Is there anything else?
I think I'm done.
Thanks. Thank you for your work. Okay, Cindy Warmington, welcome to Peterborough.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Cinde Warmington, and I am your new executive counselor. I am not new to the executive council, but I'm new to Peterborough because of the redistricting. And I now have 81 cities and towns, and 49 of them are new to me, and I am making my way around to all of the towns to get to know you all. For those of you who aren't really familiar with what the Executive Council does, you just kind of got an example here. This program of distributing ARPA funds is one of the things that the Executive Council oversees and approves, so this will be coming before us. And as I see those kind of grant programs roll out, I get those that word out to my communities. You should all be already receiving a newsletter from me or an update after each Executive Council meeting. If you're not, then let's make sure that we get everybody onto the mailing list. And so the Executive Council approves all of state spending over $10,000 and all nominations for judges, for commissioners of departments, for any kind of a board or commission. And that's one of the reasons I like to come out to the communities, is to tell you we have a lot of opportunities for people to participate in various boards and commissions, and really do encourage people to take a look and see if there's one that they might be interested in serving on. And we literally approve dozens of people for nominations at every meeting. In addition to that, what we've been working on lately, some of the bigger issues, mental health, we're going to have proposals for new mental health beds in the state coming before the council tomorrow. Broadband in this area and all around Cheshire and Sullivan and Grafton, especially some of the more rural areas. We're approving $40 million of broadband, but there's more money to come. And childcare and housing are all huge issues that we talk about quite a bit and see that spending gets out. But mostly, we are the eyes and ears for the executive branch to be out in the community and hear about the unique needs of each community. And I would not have known that you were applying for a community center grant unless I happened to hear that tonight. And I'll keep an eye on that and kind of watch that as that proceeds through. And I'm, watching that for a number of my communities. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for this time. I'll just give my card to Nicole and you can make sure they get on the mailing list.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, you can just add selectboard@peterborough.nh.gov.
Okay.
That gets everybody on
All
the
right,
list.
and I'm happy to take any questions, but don't want to take up your time.
Since you were here when applying for this grant was approved, that we're first now, right?
I have no control over that. But I will talk to the commissioner about all the communities in my district that have applied, so, thank you.
Well, don't tell everybody.
Yeah, anybody else have any questions?
Well, the top issues I think that are facing this town currently are workforce and workforce housing.
Yes,
Those are the number one issues.
everywhere I go.
We've solved the issue of broadband. We're pretty well plugged into fiber through Consolidated, or Video, I guess they're called.
Video.
And-
Every house.
And we have quite a few people living in town who actually telecommute using broadband for that purpose. But we're sorely in need of workforce. I was just talking to Liz and again, Tim Steele. If you well, you're not going to be in town long enough. Say go over to see their facility. They're really quite good.
Yes.
The other major issues that we're working on, addressing in this town, is that we're aggressively green. In fact, we were known as the greenest town in New Hampshire at one point. I don't know if we've lost that title. But we have a very aggressive program to electrify and get rid of fossil fuels, and a plan we've developed over the last 2 years to make that happen. I'd love to share that with you.
Oh, happy to. And we just approved an EV charging station in Peterborough at our last meeting, so, and I think we're going to see more of that.
The library.
Yeah.
The library.
Well, the library's going, oh,
I'm
good.
not sure that's the one. I thought it was a convenience store.
Oh.
Right, and we'll be seeing more of that money rolling out. There's a lot of money for EV charging in the infrastructure bill from the federal bill. So we'll be seeing more of that money roll out, and we'll be, thinking about you and your efforts to be green as that money comes out. And I really do make a concerted effort to make sure that all of my communities are up to date on what is coming out of the executive council. So, I have a Facebook page and a Twitter account, so sign up and you'll get a little 2-minute video after every meeting, so.
Anything you hear about grant money or anything along those lines for fire departments? Keep
Yes.
us posted. We're working pretty hard on getting that. So-
Yeah, we did have a grant program just for that, just a while back that closed, but I'm sure you probably took advantage of it. It was in my prior term, so I wouldn't have been the one reaching out to you, but we did have one, and, as we're getting to the end of those funds, but we do still have like the infrastructure bill that's coming up. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I will say this, one of the big things before the Executive Council this year, because it's an odd year, is we do the 10-year highway plan. So we'll be holding hearings all around the district, and my district now extends from Winchester and Hinsdale all the way up to Littleton, Plymouth, Ashland, I'm going to have the Mount Washington Hotel. But we'll be having meetings all around the district. And, obviously, we were already meeting with the regional planning commissions, and that's where that whole process gets started. But the 10-year plan will be done this year, so the hearings.
Anyone else have any questions?
I wanted to thank you for being that voice in Williams' office.
Thank you.
Yes, noted. Excellent, thanks for joining us. Up next, well, Anyone want to talk for 6 minutes before we go into the next phase? Next phase, 5:30? And we'll take a short recess, 5-minute recess.
So Cindy, where is this EV charging station going in?
I don't know the specific address, I would have known it it would have been in our packet for the last meeting, but it isn't.
Now, is it a high-speed charger system? know
It
that-
is a high-speed charger
I
system.
know there's one going into the co-op up over in Keene,
Mhm.
but we're getting one here.
In Peterborough,
Oh,
yes.
wow, great.
It's gotta be,
You do know that we
Gotta be all
have
done.
charging stations down in our Riverwalk Park that we installed, last year? So,
I think they said 30 minutes to charge, did they?
high speed, 20
Yeah.
to 30 minutes.
30 minutes, I think, to charge, so.
convenient.
Yeah.
Adds up that it's at a convenience store. It's gotta be all town, they don't have any room for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where else do they put it?
No room in the shelf.
I'm reading it for the second time.
Sorry?
New Menneson Village.
Really? Oh, it's a new neighborhood. Well, that's not a convenience shop. And I thought that Newbie was doing their own.
They are.
Wait,
Maybe that's different.
Yeah, I think that's different about the one that.
Different than.
This would be a public one.
Okay.
She's talking about. Cool.
Press one button, press one button. Did you go to Johnson?
Level 2 charging. High speed ranges.
It's only millions.
I have,
Kind of an oversight.
what do they call it?
One that next to the Kennedy Bridge.
Well, they work, they work hard.
An Amazon Fire tab.
We're looking up the exact location.
I saw prices in Kindle.
Amazon, yeah.
Oh,
I read it through the first time.
wouldn't have got much use out of it last week. It was all town, didn't have power.
Did you have?
And so everybody was trying to get gas, couldn't get diesel in town.
Yeah.
Several.
Okay, the project location is the Global Partners parking lot located at 113 Grove Street.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, all town.
It's all town.
Great.
That's a great spot for it.
Yeah, the Shell station. Yeah. Everybody in town trying to get gas, and they ran out of gas anyway, so.
I made sure I had a full charge before the restaurant. I had no idea.
Al, how you doing?
No, I never did. And I use my. Michigan State. Charge
That's the only big.
I did.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Keep trying to remember where
I'll
it
be
is.
back.
Can have a chance to have dinner.
How long have you been, Cindy, how long have you been on the executive
This is
council?
my second
That
term.
would be up here.
Which are what, how many year term?
2 years. Yeah,
No, I mean-
this is my second term.
Oh, yeah.
The lone wolf.
Did your district overlap, did you come to a meeting here about the 10-year plan?
No, I wouldn't have come here without, this
Well, it
wasn't
was
my district.
for a lot of surrounding communities.
Yeah, I didn't have.
I'll figure it out. right?
Okay. Thank you all.
You know, a little bit past
Thank you for your service.
Well, Mueller took over.
But it's been really.
Yeah, okay, that was who, and then we got rehistory.
Well, we got her. Right.
No, I know she was running for what, 3-4 years ago or something.
tunnel that. Tunnel that. He operates on that. He has. What you doing, Jerry? There's nothing to do about it. You can't even get to it. I mean, you couldn't get to it. I'm the first player to get mine. Yeah, you can do it in the car.
It's like Tuesday night, I had a meeting without you. No, thanks, Michael.
You ready?
Okay, 5:30, welcome back, everybody. It's been a while. Okay, we'll have a joint select board and budget committee meeting right now to review the draft budget warrant, the draft warrant, and vote to recommend or not recommend some petition warrant articles that came in. Then we have minutes from February 28th and March 7th to vote on. We have been joined by the budget committee, if you're just joining us. Chair Carl Mabzino's here. I see Al Lennis, Andrew Osterman, Rick Lesser, there's Mary Clark and Ronnie McIntyre, sorry, Leslie Willis and Mandy Slaver back there. Welcome. Welcome. Okay. Nicole, you're gonna quickly review the draft
Sure.
warrant, or?
Yep, so we've already covered most of the warrant. We received 3 petition warrant articles last week. Andrew Osterman was the lead petitioner on all 3 of these. So we are collectively calling them the Osterman articles at this point.
Memorial articles.
So we have 3 here. I have tentatively put them on the open session just because it's the end of the warrant, and so I dropped them in there, but the selectmen will need to make a decision about whether or not to include them on the open session or on the ballot. The first one, because it's a moneyed article, is the pedestrian path, which would seek to appropriate $201,000 from the pedestrian enhancement fund to construct an ADA accessible pathway from Evans Road, the end of Evans Road, crossing the back of the DPW lot and terminating at the connection with the Strauss parking lot. There are a couple problems with this article. One of them is that there is no pedestrian enhancement fund. We have a transportation improvement fund that was established in 2017, capital reserve fund. That was Article 5 in 2017. So this, I believe that's the fund that this is referring to, because that's the fund that would seek to make pedestrian and bicycle related improvements. Anything but roadways. So you would have to, there will need to be an amendment at town meeting to ensure that the monies can be raised without tax dollars, but as it's currently written, it will require taxation to raise the $201,000. The other issue is that if that is the fund, there is currently $155,121.95 in that fund. As of today, we have $23,718 to add to that fund at the end of this fiscal year, but we won't have $200,000, so even $201,000. So even if it's amended, unless the amount is also amended, there will be some amount that will need to be raised through taxation if this does pass. So I just want to make that clear to everyone before you consider whether or not to recommend it. So because there's money attached to it, it does require a vote to recommend or not recommend from both the select board and the budget committee, which is why you're all here tonight. The next 2 articles do not require a vote to recommend or not recommend from anybody. They can move forward without that, but if the selectmen do choose to vote to recommend or not recommend, we can record that as well. So those are the 3 things that we'll be looking for tonight. Decision on where these articles will appear, a decision by the bodies on whether or not to recommend what is currently Article 20, and then a decision by the select board on whether or not they wish to vote on Articles 21 and 22.
Andrew, would you like to speak to any of these or explain anything? Or
I think they're pretty comprehensive. Of course, happy to answer any questions.
saw Al's hand go up.
I have a question, yes. Is there any wetlands involved or any specialty area considerations like that?
So
The width, sorry, the second part would be the width of the, quote, the path and/or where did the $201,000 come from? How
So
was that
the
run?
$200,000 one, that was the balance in the fund as of 2 months ago.
But there's no number, is there a?
No, so I've talked to Seth
is there
about it.
a-
We think it's gonna come in closer to 120. So that's a dramatic overshoot. And the only reason the number was picked was because it was less than the balance fund at the time when I started to work on it.
Oh, okay, back to the wetlands, et cetera.
So
Feasibility.
there are two governing statutes that control development in wetlands. One is New Hampshire, well, three actually. Peterborough Master Plan Guiding Principle 4.1 prioritizes walkability and bicycle infrastructure throughout Peterborough. So that's sort of the driving vision behind this. New Hampshire state law, wetland protection is covered by RSA 492, Section A3. Paragraph 12, I'm quoting, persons who construct and maintain recreational trails in accordance with best management practices for erosion control during trail maintenance and construction published by the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources and who have filed appropriate notice as described in some paragraph B to construct and maintain such trails with Department and Department of Natural Resources and Cultural Resources shall have satisfied the permitting requirements for the section for minimum impact activities as defined by rules and adopted by the Commission. So under New Hampshire state law, as long as you follow best practices, you are in fact allowed to build a trail wherever you want. It's not just that we have to worry about. There's also Peterborough zoning code. Specifically, the wetland component of Peterborough zoning is section 245-15. There is a subsection K, permitted use, paragraph 3, bullet point E gives specific by right development for conservation and natural trails. And because I think we really wanted to put a bullet point behind it, bullet point H also specifically allows for the construction of unpaved footpaths, footbridges, bicycle paths, and horse paths no wider than 6 feet. So New Hampshire state law and Peterborough zoning regulations allows by right development of a trail.
We'd like to see a statement or have some discussion with Seth, or have had comment from Seth on this. Frankly, since you said you consulted with him.
Oh yeah, no, I've worked with Danica since last summer, and I've been working with Seth on this since September.
So this is, would usually go through CIP, right? So I'm just curious why you didn't, if you've been working with them since last summer, why you didn't go
So
through
it's
the CIP
weird
process?
because we have this fund, but there's no established mechanism to extract revenue from it. And so the Peterborough voters created this bucket of money for this purpose, but they didn't establish a process for going through it. So CIP doesn't necessarily have jurisdiction over it, and that's why I thought this would be easier to push it through to warrant, because if it's not clear how something gets done, maybe we should just throw it to the voters and get their approval.
I would like to clarify that the fund, when created, does stipulate and to designate the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend.
Yeah.
So if you're the agents to expend, why are we voting on it?
Because there's a petition.
Does anybody else have any sort of plan out there? Is there any money that was earmarked for something else that would no longer be for that if this got approved?
We don't have specific plans necessarily that will draw on this. There is a plan to complete the Evans Road sidewalk that already exists to the community center. The plan is to complete that by connecting it through the municipal lot there during the construction process for the fire station, and have that terminate at the connection to Shaw's. So whether or not that drew on these funds, which entirely could, or drew on other project funds, we hadn't determined that yet, but that has been part of the process for the improvements there since the beginning.
But to your point, if the select board chose to approve the development of this for whatever the current balance is, we wouldn't even need to put it on the warrant.
Have you worked with the planning board on this? Or I'm sorry, have you worked with our planner, Danica?
Yeah, Danica actually identified a couple grant opportunities, but you get in the chicken and egg problem of chasing grants where you can't chase a grant for something that hasn't been approved. But yeah.
Have we ever planned by petition before?
No, not that I'm aware of.
I think it's a bad precedent to set, that we plan our community through petition. Yeah, Francie, you want to say something down to wetlands?
The Conservation Commission, this is on DPW land, and the trail that we have from the Lollipop Evans Road is a monster to maintain, but I think it's a little bit apples and oranges here. It's wet. I guess the Concom, members of the Concom have built trails in town and elsewhere, and have gone to workshops on trail building, and the primary question is the purpose. Who are your users, and what's the goal? Are you going to see some scenic spot? This sounds like it's going to shopping, and so is this the best route for people to go to a major shopping center in town? And it seems, can you explain what the fund is? I sort of have the pedestrian enhancement fund and that concept.
So here's the establishing language. To see if the town will vote to adopt provisions of RSA 261:153, Roman numeral 6, to collect an additional fee for the purpose of supporting a municipal and transportation improvement fund, which shall be a capital reserve fund established for this purpose. The maximum fee shall be $5, and to see if the town will authorize the establishment of a capital reserve fund pursuant to RSA Chapter 35, to be known as the Transportation Improvement Capital Reserve Fund, for the purpose of bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure improvements, but not to be used for general road improvements, and to designate the select board as agents to expend.
Okay, so it has the bike and footpath in
Yes,
there.
it's very clearly limited to that.
Yeah, it sounds like funds are limited, so in terms of prioritizing where best to spend them, it would seem that you'd really need to identify the population that would be using this. And it's not a scenic, it would certainly not be. Conservation Commission is interested in getting people out to natural resources, scenic, and good advertisements for the, so this is something quite different, it seems. And Swift Corwin actually was trying different routes, and it's hard to make it scenic and pleasing other than getting from A to B to shop.
The good news we have is there's actually a very large berm at the back of the DPW lot, so you're not going to be looking at dump trucks the whole way. What you're going to be overlooking is basically the wetland parts that extend beyond
That information would be helpful for the select
Yeah,
board.
a map would have been very helpful. I don't visualize exactly where this path is supposed to go.
Mary?
Couple questions, Andrew, if I may.
And that would be the questions, I guess I wasn't direct enough, that it seems, what's the population that would, this would be a magnet to the population to go shopping, is that the intention? And it's a desolate, Evans is a,
Desolate, isolated.
you would, well, I'm
I
sorry.
live there.
No, I don't mean, bad word choice.
It's near and dear to
It's
some
not,
parts.
it's not a place in town where you go to the Evans Trail. We did a lot of work there. It's not highly used. But I think, again, it seems to me someone would have to drive there and then
Well-
park there and then walk to Shaw's and
From looking at the CDW, or the census designated place mapping, there's about 1,700 residents in Peterborough that live within a mile of Shaw's.
yeah.
Nobody can walk to it right now because there's no pedestrian access to it. That would change that.
There is, I think, universal agreement, which is rare, in Peterborough, that it's very important to give people pedestrian access to Shaw's and CVS so that they don't have to walk around 101. So, okay, brainstorm, what's the best way to do it?
Well, it's the only way to do it.
Well,
Because
no,
everything
that's
else
not
is
true.
true.
There's
Well,
To not use 101?
oh, no,
Yes,
that's,
I
think
just
we're all
explained
agreed
it.
that we have to solve that issue. We do not want people walking to that complex along 101. Everybody in agreement there?
Yeah.
But that's what kind of the discussion with the potential new municipal campus to have a path that way, and then there would obviously be adequate parking at the municipal campus.
So is that the new town policy that we're going to build a municipal campus on 101?
It's not a new policy. We've been working towards that for many years now.
Well, it's in the master plan that you decided.
Sorry, before we get any further, I made an error in, we should make it clear that these came from you personally, Andrew, and since you're sitting with
This
the...
came from 30 citizens of Peterborough.
But not from the budget committee.
Presenting wise, presentation wise, you were part of the budget committee, sitting at the table with the budget committee,
Yeah.
but this is your personal
Mhm.
venture, and we should make that clear for anybody that just watched this in its archives, so.
Now, doesn't Danica have a vision for these funds? I mean, I know that it's come up on several occasions, and it's integrated into a larger vision for,
We don't have a specific vision yet. That's something the master plan as steering committee
Right.
will be looking at. There haven't been, so I know that $155,000 sounds like quite a bit of money. It's really not when you're talking about projects like
oh,
these.
yeah, they can't even paint
Bike,
lines.
exactly, bike paths, ADA compliant paths, which are essentially sidewalks, when you get down to it, with the amount of construction has to go into something that can be winter maintained and all of that. You're basically building a sidewalk through the woods. That's what we'd be talking about here.
Well, it's a little different because the Peterborough zoning would prohibit using pavement, so it would have to be something called hard pack. Book point tape.
For all intents and purposes, it's something that you'll be able to plow. So
And
whether
lighting,
it's,
I would assume, or have to have lighting.
I don't think it has to have lighting, no, not for 88 compliance.
Mary was next, if
yeah.
you take it next. Yeah, thanks.
I agree that a map would have been helpful, but Andrew, a couple questions if I
Sure.
may. What is the length of the
It's
proposed
about
path?
1,200 feet.
1,200 feet? And given the variation in the terrain over which this will pass, what is the understanding of the underlying structure and all of the surface material? Will all the surface material be hard
So
packed?
the vision right now is to use hard pack because that brings us into compliance with the zoning. There's a little bit of a discussion, if we were to move forward as a town, to look at a zoning variance and the potential to pivot from hard pack to permeable pavement. The reason for that is in talking to the residents of Scott Farrar, which are very excited about the opportunity to walk to Shaw's, their feedback was ADA accessible is great for wheelchairs, but it's actually very bad for walkers. So they're really, really rooting for pavement so they can take their walkers down there. So that would be the difference. The construction methodology for permeable pavement is more expensive and more complicated than it would be for hard pack. And it would also require a variance. So it sort of depends on how it gets done.
And what about the underlying structural components?
The soil it would go over? Topically speaking, it's actually fairly flat back there. And in fact, there's very little gradient one way or another. So you're just building on the earth like anywhere else.
Well, but there was discussion about wetlands. It's
No.
crossing
So it would
wetlands.
not need to cross the wetlands, you just need to go through a wetland buffer. But again, even if it did go through a wetland, we're allowed to do that.
I would like to remind everyone that this is going to be discussed at length once again, at least once again. Would it be appropriate to move the question at this point?
I just think
Well,
in order
we
for
need-
us to vote on it.
Yes, exactly. We were asked to vote on whether it was working on
Yeah.
it. We should hear, because this, the first time we saw it was when the packet came out. So there was no collaboration with the select board that is designated to expend these funds, so we just found out about it Friday. Yeah, Leslie, you're next. Yeah.
So as a follow-up on the maintenance, would money be set aside for future maintenance of that path and for plowing and all those kind of
So
things?
the fund itself regenerates because it's attached to an automatic tax provision. So.
You're talking about the total fund for all the walkways. So you're saying that we would continue to use the fund that's meant to build all those things to maintain this path?
There's a possibility to do that, yeah.
But-
But in terms of like general maintenance, perhaps the Concon will want to adopt it, there's a lot of ways to go about it. But it's going to be dependent on what the actual construction material is.
But you don't have any idea of, so we would be saying yes to this, but not understanding of
It
future
is
costs.
unknowable until there is a determination made on how to construct it. But of course, at that point, we'd be able to roll it into the DPW. Ultimately, we're talking about perhaps plowing, perhaps closing for the winter, a 1,200-foot long sidewalk.
10 months? Al, you had a question?
Yes, I heard you say that people with walkers would be interested in this. I'm more concerned about people with walkers who have to carry back their groceries and how often they would really use that, because I have trouble getting to my car.
I live across the street
I
from
would-
Scott Farrar, and they're
That's-
huffing back right now with their little walkers in their bags.
That may be, but they shouldn't be, in any case. And I'm not going to facilitate their getting into trouble. I haven't seen them, but and I drive that road all the time, too, Elm Street. But I would say that I can't envision that exactly being a reason to do this. I would say there have to be other reasons. And if it could be incorporated in the fire station campus, or the municipal campus, I could envision somehow that being part of that proposal, as opposed to this as a separate construction, having to then later be reconstructed possibly. But the surface is not sufficient for people to walk with their, quote, walkers and walk back. And in my opinion, it's just my opinion. I'm not far from a walker myself.
I got a couple questions.
Sure.
Have you talked to Shaw's or Rite Aid or whoever's
Talked to
property?
Shaw's, all of the management at Shaw's is very supportive of it. The lot itself is actually owned by Albertsons. They weren't sure who to go through for final corporate appeal, but here's one of the cool parts about it. We actually don't need their permission. The town already has an easement to construct onto their property that was put in place with a vision of supporting, I think, stormwater management or something else, but the town actually has the right to build completely onto their lot already.
So once it reached their parking lot, there would have to be paint that would delineate a path for them to get to the store. Who would maintain that? Or are they just cutting the path? There has to be, you can't just dump into a parking lot. And then people roam across cars.
Well, that's how we do now. There's no designated lane
There
from the
should be.
sidewalk on 101.
Well, there are crosswalks and stuff in the parking lot.
Yeah, right, that's what you,
But they would have to construct them. They would have to paint so that people wouldn't park
I'll
there and that kind of
I'll tell
thing.
you what, if it comes to it, I'm happy to go out there and walk and paint myself.
We can guarantee that for the life of the walkway?
Sure, I'm happy to sign that.
What, I'm sure that we can't just decide to dump out a path anywhere we feel like on that property. I'm
Actually,
quite sure of that.
that's what the deed says.
The deed says we can do stormwater management.
No, it's an easement, we can do construction. That's per set, by the way.
Okay, well, I'm sure that we wouldn't just want to dump out, people on walkers who just went, 1,800 feet, half a mile?
According to Al, we're not gonna do walkers, we're not gonna do the pavement because we shouldn't let people walk. So we just
I
normal
remember
walkers
hearing
and
him say
kids.
that.
I didn't say that.
You were opposed to it because they shouldn't be
I'm
walking
opposed
the
to
backs.
walking on a road, heavily traveled road. In fact,
Yeah.
we should ask the police department what they think of either that situation or even the current situation. What could happen out there if they have to go rescue somebody who's fallen off the path, if you will? What are the rescue provisions of that? So we could keep going on this.
Yep.
Well, we don't think we need to go too crazy on it, but I'm pretty sure that Shaw's would want to know where we're dumping a new line of citizens into their parking
Well, in
lot.
point of
I mean,
fact-
just for, if it's all right if I just finish the sentence before you start talking over me? I think on a liability safety standpoint, there's a whole bunch of people that would weigh in and need to. We can't just build something into their parking lot. My other question would be, you have a quote from somebody for 120,000?
From Seth.
No, you don't.
No,
Seth has not gotten a quote from me. I did speak to him about this.
Right.
He has not gotten a quote or an estimate from anyone on this, even himself.
No, Seth reached out to his peers in other towns that have had similar ones, and he came back with about $140,000, but that was assuming hard pack, not the other stuff. The opportunities we have is the low grade. Cuts a lot of the cost out of this.
And again, all this is assuming that it's permittable. And
Well, why wouldn't it be
there's-
permittable?
Well, the DES still has a say in all of this as well, since there are wetlands involved.
Under New Hampshire state law, we are permitted to do it. By record.
I think it gets more complicated when you're talking about building something. It isn't just a path. This isn't a hiking trail through the woods. It is, essentially, as you say, hard pack or sidewalk at level construction. So I think there is quite a bit more to it. I don't want to put any words into Seth's mouth. I think a lot's already been said in his name, and I think that whenever this comes to discussion at town meeting, Seth will be prepared to speak a bit more to what would be involved in such a thing. But he's not here tonight, so.
It seems like there's a question of, what if there's a loader running around at the back of the public works property? Or trucks moving around?
Well, there's a berm that separates it, it's about 7 feet tall.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily a permanent berm, that's dirt that's been dumped there from construction projects. There's nothing saying that's there forever.
There's nothing saying that any of us are gonna be here forever.
Well, you just said you're gonna paint it forever.
Yeah, well, I mean, that obviously wouldn't extend beyond that.
Anybody else have a question? Leslie?
Well, I just had one more.
Okay.
So you're assuming 120, but
I'm
you're
assuming-
shooting for 201,000 that we don't even have in the fund.
Well,
right?
I've already explained, that was the balance in the fund when I started looking into it.
So it is all of it.
Was that?
Is
No,
all
it was
of it.
200, it was $204,000 that was in the fund, so it's actually less. than
I believe what you're referring to was an estimate for CI, that was done for CIP for fiscal year '25.
Okay.
That was where that number comes from.
Then it wasn't even the fund that's listed here. But weren't we talking about downtown bike and walking enhancements using money from that fund for painted special areas
Like paths, yeah.
A
on
lot
Summer
of-
Street and out to Rivermead?
A lot of ideas have come up for use in that, but none of them have actually been brought to the select board.
Okay.
Right, but they're going through the normal processes that we normally go through in planning for the community.
Exactly.
Right.
Leslie had another question?
Yeah, so I just have a comment, which is, I have actually walked on 101 because I wanted to walk to Shaw's like in the summer. So I get it. I think it's a great idea. I think it has not really been discussed or planned enough by anyone other than you. And I feel like I would love to see that. I don't think we have to be all in a hurry to do it this coming fiscal year. Why can't we just talk about it, go through a process, maybe have a little plan or a real quote from a real engineer and a real idea of what it would cost to put that hard pack down. I mean, what Francie's talking about is like just building trails, like little, kind of hard to walk on trails sometimes. You're talking about an actual project that, I just think it's a great idea, but its time has not come. That's all. And I also would object to using most of a fund to do a one thing like this.
Yeah, I think the issue of how this is planned is an important one because we do have this fire station project underway. We also have repairs underway that is funded for DPW. So this burn that you referred to, Andrew, we don't know where that's going to end up, whether that's going to be a factor or not. I don't see any reason, as you say, Leslie, to do it now because we are planning that whole area out there. So not only are we planning it, but we're going to have to build a fire station in the foreseeable future. And during the construction, there will be a lot of things moving around. We did have a plan for the municipal campus at a certain stage that showed a path to Shaw's. It didn't come through the wetlands area. It came up more or less parallel to 101. So I don't see any particular reason to shortcut the process of doing an overall plan by taking off with a walkway in the back. We don't even know what it's going to be in the back of by the time we're finished.
Anyone else?
I just have one quick question. How would this impact the existing path, Andrew? That right now, there isn't like kind of a loop that
The
exists right
Evans
now.
Road loop goes off to the right, this would go to the left.
It'll be closer to the road, per se.
Well, the direct shot to Shaw's would
Well.
require you to go to the left, so that two paths would intersect.
So it wouldn't be at the end of the loop.
Well, they both start at the same spot.
Oh, but then you kind of go to the left rather than.
Anyone else? All right, select board. All those in favor from the select board, say aye.
I think planning by petition is a very bad idea.
Sounds like a no.
All those not in favor? Nay. Okay, so it's three no's, and I'll hand it over to Carl Mabzino, the chair of the budget committee.
Thank you. From the viewpoint of the budget committee, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, that's a one. I was just demonstrating.
Good clear.
Did he vote on his own petition?
Yes.
I see no problem with that. All those opposed from the budget committee, raise your hand. That's 7. And there's one person missing.
Okay, that one's finished. Article 21. Who's describing this?
Should we vote to whether it goes on the ballot or not as we go through each, or do we want to do that later?
All right.
You can do them all whenever you like.
Yeah, that's right. We don't have to vote to approve or not approve these next two.
You do not.
So we don't even have to discuss them. We only have to decide whether we
Where
put them
they're
on.
at.
Where we put
I
them.
would like to vote to approve or not approve.
I would not. But if you make a motion, that would be appropriate.
If you feel physically capable. One of them is,
My blood pressure.
regarding your age.
My blood pressure.
Yeah, you reckon the average?
So you think we should vote to approve or not approve? What do you think?
I'm fine with voting to approve or not approve.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
Article 21. Now, the budget committee is not relating to money, so they don't have to vote.
They don't have to vote on
But the
this.
select board gets the honor. Okay,
Is there going to be any discussion?
there should probably be discussion. I mean, we just heard about these on Friday. Would you like to explain where this is at?
I mean, I think it sort of speaks for
But
itself.
perhaps people that are watching haven't read the packet, or, I think it would.
Sure. Article 21, Codebook Amendment regarding scheduling of meetings by petition. The family dinner and caring for young children at bedtime is an integral part of the American tradition and raising the next generation of Peterborough citizens. Moreover, a resident of Peterborough should never be forced to choose between being a good parent and being a good citizen. Therefore, no town meeting, board meeting, commission meeting, or committee meeting shall take place between the hours of 5 p.m. and 8 p.m.
Ever. Is there a time that they should?
If you guys would like to appoint one, you could.
Does anybody have any questions
So
about
during
this?
the day, all those same people wouldn't have to be at work, or?
Or after 8 o'clock?
Yeah, yeah, you can do that. You do the weekend.
But aren't the kids in bed? I mean, don't just like a babysitter, put them out in bed?
Putting kids to bed and having kids in bed are two different animals.
I wouldn't leave my young kids alone.
No.
Without 7 o'clock or.
How does this impact rearing your family? It doesn't seem like it's an either-or situation. It seems that there can be if there are two parents, their parents can share responsibility. They can see the presentation with or without their kids in the room. So how does it impact lives to not have this available?
I'm paying $20 an hour to sit here right now.
Okay.
Next question?
Did you know that when you when you applied for this position, when you were a candidate for the position?
Of course he did. It was a sacrifice.
So
I
you're
was
saying
willing to
people
make.
would or wouldn't make that decision to be on various boards if they knew those hours were?
Yeah, obviously.
But you did know. Other people are not making that. Are other people not making that decision to be on boards because these are the hours?
Are you asking me to
I think we should be
speak
careful
for-
about talking to one another.
I'm sorry.
Let's address them to the group. We're just trying to get a feel for how, if we can.
Okay. It was more of a comment.
So I appreciate that.
More of a comment. I'm sorry.
Anybody else that, in their citizen capacity, would like to ask a question about this? Yes.
The Conservation Commission, I schedule those meetings. We didn't have a chance to meet, but I did send an email around. We can't do business by email, but I got some responses, and I feel comfortable. We're advisory. This is not a budget item. But I'd say half the people are 9-to-5ers. One of them said, I'd like to be in bed at 8 and putting in a day's work, and then others said that we would have to have a meeting at 3:30 and get it done quickly. Usually we have a 2-hour meeting. Although now we have a really good quick guy that's running meetings better than me, so they're quicker. But anyway, so we'd have to meet at 3:30. That doesn't work for people who... we meet once a month, sit down here at 7 o'clock. we periodically ask, poll the people there, what's the best time? And currently it's 7. A little while ago it was 6. We have site visits, and that again, polling the group, what works. And we don't get a full group for site visits, but it tends to be late afternoon, 5 o'clock, if there's daylight. But anyway, briefly, which is hard for me, it's a nightmare to schedule. And as one person said, you're never going to get the sweet spot. She also is a single parent who said she did get a babysitter. Sometimes she brought Nathan to a meeting. And she works. So anecdotally, there's lots of anecdotes.
Friends, you bring up a great point. We all liaison to several of these committees, and there's always the consensus when new people join. You come to an agreement on what time to meet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it accommodates whoever can't make it by 6 or 7, we hold it later. And it's been the same with the select board. There are times I can't make it at 4 or 4:30 when we have a public, so they accommodate my schedule. So that's a great point to raise too. There's no, there really is no hindrance to people adjusting meeting schedules. So,
Well, particularly if you're on one, say you're on the planning board and you have one meeting a month. It's not earth-shattering to schedule one meeting.
anyone else?
I had to say no to CIP because it was at 3. Because they broke the rule about skewing over 65. So none of them worked, so they could all meet in the day, or most of them. So I think that this third petition kind of screws with your second petition, because the only people who can be flexible enough to work either in the day or maybe on a Saturday are the old retired folks. Everybody, most other people can't be flexible enough to work during the day. So you kind of shot yourself in the foot a little bit with having those little bit of a conflicting idea there, I think.
Anyone else? I swear. Are you guys ready to make it?
I am.
Yeah.
I've been ready quite some time.
Okay, all those in favor of petition Article 21, raise your hand.
Approving the article?
In favor of it?
In favor.
Hearing none.
And those opposed?
3.
Opposed. Not because it's not a good idea to want more people to be at meetings, but it's just hard. You can't
Dictate it.
I don't feel you can put this.
Yeah, there's no better
Blackout
alternative, that's the
period.
problem.
Okay, and then we have Article 22. Would you like to explain that one?
If the average age of a current member of a town commission, committee, or board is over the age of 65, the select board shall only appoint residents below the age of 65 to any vacant seat, position, or role.
As a senior member of the select board, and I do that on the age basis,
And you bring
I'm
our
insulted.
average up too.
Exactly.
Wait
I'm
a
insulted.
second. We're out of here.
I'm freaking insulted.
Well,
But
Beyond
you're
the
not
fact
appointed, you're
that
You're
elected.
elected, you're
No,
not
he
appointed.
understands that.
But still.
No, I get it.
I think it's illegal.
And then second, it's unconstitutional, it's illegal.
It's neither unconstitutional nor illegal.
Yeah, he's a lawyer.
To discriminate.
Town attorney has weighed in on this one, based on the language. He said that it would be unenforceable, even if it were adopted by town meeting, because it is age discriminatory.
What specific New Hampshire law was it violated?
Town attorney's opinion is that it would be discriminatory. It's not a New Hampshire law, it's a federal law.
What federal law is it violated?
There's many age discrimination laws on the books.
Oh, not really that many, but all right. So,
It only really needs to be one.
Yeah.
the age discrimination law you're probably referring to is the Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967. It's limited to just employment. This isn't an employed role. This is appointed volunteer positions. So if the town attorney would like to share what the actual law is you think this is violating, I'd love to hear it. It would be a wonderful point to bring up.
Town attorney will be at
Will
town
be at
meeting,
town
and I'm
meeting.
sure the select board asked him for his opinion. He will be able to present it.
Would anybody else like to sway our opinion in this?
I'll just, anecdotally,
Which group do you fall?
You want to state your age, please?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, this is very self-interest. But the woman I said who was a single parent, who chose to when she came on the Concom, she was quite young. We tend to row the same hoe for, anyway, she's still on the Concom. She's a PhD in town planning. She is a town planner for Jaffrey. She's got natural resource, totally. And so she was in her 40s with little baby Nathan, got a babysitter. And then sometimes Nathan would come to a meeting, town meeting probably. And now she's, we're gonna kick her off. I mean, hypothetically. And the wisdom, the experience, and if anyone younger can match her for any of those things. And we also, the Concom, we are older. We have had discussions about bringing on younger people. We would really like to have younger people. And there's the reality of who's, so that's just, it verges on, this woman was quite annoyed.
We got a letter from her.
I'm
Well, maybe we should just put a sign on the townhouse that says over 65 not welcome. Because would that encourage people to run for office in the first place, being over 65?
This wouldn't impact people running for office.
It's just a point.
But would you be encouraged
Right.
if you knew that there was a code in the town books that said, you're older than we would appoint?
3 out of 4 Peterburgians are under the age of 65. So if the average age of any
How
person-
many of them are on, say, the budget committee?
Well,
That's an elected
that's
position.
an elected position.
Right.
Or CIP.
CIP is appointed.
CIP is appointed.
That's what I'm saying, like use that as your example, CIP.
No.
But has anybody been
Well, I mean,
derived
if everybody decided because they're over 65, they didn't want to be on the budget committee anymore because of this nonsense,
Well,
then
in the-
how many people would be left? One.
Well,
I would like to point out that we say it almost at every meeting, the value we get from our volunteer citizens in this town is immeasurable. And the things that have been accomplished for decades and decades because of people that have given their time, whether it be getting out of work early, getting out of work early or getting to meetings and or meeting people outside of the meetings. It's incredible. And to put any kind of limit on that it just doesn't make sense. We should be encouraging more younger people and incentivizing them somehow. Although we've all scratched our heads if you're on any of these committees, how do you get someone interested when they're just not thinking about it? So that's the real challenge, not limiting people that can. Anybody else? Carl, yes.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is we don't have a whole bunch of people scrambling to get on these committees, and now we have to figure out some kind of formal directive to the select board to choose among those people.
Who can offend them?
But I have to say, with no humor intended, that I take the same position that Bill Kennedy expressed with a little bit better spirit than mine, and that I feel insulted to see any designation by age as to who can serve or be appointed to a committee. I don't think that's consistent with the values of the community, and I hope that the press doesn't pick this up as something representative of what Peterborough is thinking about doing.
Well said. Anyone else? Mandy?
I just wanted to comment on a couple of things that have been mentioned about younger people being on boards and committees and how we do all want to incentivize that and encourage that. As a person who was 20 years younger when I moved here 20 years ago, I was heavily involved and as much as I could be and kept being encouraged to be more involved, but my comment at the time was it's not that I didn't want to be involved, it's when you're in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s. I was working 3 jobs to try to afford my house. It's not always that they're not interested. It's not always that they don't want to be involved. Now that I'm in my 40s and close to 50s, I'm financially more sound to be able to offer more volunteer time. So a lot of it is just I could not offer the amount of time when I was struggling to pay off college loans and, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to make that comment that it's sometimes we do tend to say that it's difficult to get the younger people involved because they aren't interested, and I think that's inaccurate and a little bit offensive as well, because I think they are interested and I think that they do want to be involved, but there is a difficulty in them being able to volunteer, and so we wait until they have the time and try to the information out as much as we can on our website, and I think we do a great job of that, so just wanted to make that comment.
So another hand, maybe?
Yeah, just I had a quick comment as well. My limited experience in meetings and committees is when a vacancy does appear, we always try to encourage younger people to get involved. I mean, I think that's been a priority, I know, in some discussions that I've been in. That's always kind of the first thing, can we get some younger people? And you know, I think that's definitely something that's kind of top of mind with everybody. You know, and unfortunately, to Mandy's point, you know, they're not always available, but it's certainly an effort on our part to skew younger wherever we can.
Certainly another incentive to solve the workforce housing problem, since young people can't necessarily afford a house in Peterborough anyway. So we're going to have a more limited pool of super young people in town.
Well, they still have to work, too.
Right.
Mary?
I would echo the comments that have already been made about the importance of diversity on any of these appointed committees, and I would say that it goes beyond age. We talk about gender, we could talk about disability status, we could talk about sexual orientation, and any number of other demographics, none of which are required to be divulged by an appointed person. I would, again, reinforce the positive approach and the encouragement of diversity on a number of demographic factors that would enrich our committees, in addition to those such as Francie mentioned about the depth of experience of our citizens.
The select board, I'm sorry, the select board ultimately decides who sits on these various committees. In your experience, Tyler, in the many years that you've served on the select board, do you know of one instance in which we have rejected an application?
No, it's quite the opposite.
Exactly.
Very ecstatic that someone wants to do it.
Exactly. So I vote that we discourage people from.
I also think, is there age on a form anywhere? Like,
No.
do you even know how old people are when they?
You
can kind of-
You are required to be a registered citizen, and therefore you're probably eligible to vote.
Not
So-
necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Only for the elected committees.
And of course, the people in the community member can choose to withhold their age.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you have to guess, like make a judgment on the way they look to figure out how old they are.
No, you just
Well, you just ask them and say, we're very interested in having you on our committee, but
How old are you?
we're not allowed to because we have law, so can you tell us how old you are?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, I think we've heard many arguments on this. All is in favor from the select board of recommending Article 22?
Speak up, though.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Three opposed.
And then the question of whether to put them on the ballot or the open session.
Open session, I think we should discuss this.
Discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And the open session is Wednesday, the
Wednesday,
11th.
the 10th.
Wednesday, the 10th,
10th,
correct, sorry.
yes.
What time?
Will we still be able to have meetings at that hour?
Until people vote about it.
Oh, right.
I would like to make a request. I understand moving 1 and maybe even 22 to an open session, but I'd like to keep 21 on the ballot, if for no other reason. When you're talking about holding an open session about making participation in the government more accessible within the specific time that you're not allowing people to participate.
We're not allowing them to participate.
Yeah, because
The
you're...
meeting's at the meeting time.
The time is already fixed is my point, so that's the issue. So I understand...
Plenty of notice.
Was that?
Plenty of notice.
Well, I don't know how notice helps a poor single mother afford childcare. So holding it on a ballot allows all citizens to vote at the time of their choosing. So like I said, totally understand 20, totally can see a case for 22. I'd like to make a strong ask that we put 21 on the ballot so that people can participate in this question at the time of their choosing.
I think there was actually some discussion earlier, at an earlier meeting that we had about maybe doing a polling, an informal poll at our next meeting.
Exactly.
But
We can ask the citizens.
Right, but I think an informal poll, as people come in, presenting this to them as opposed to putting it on the ballot, I think is more appropriate and get a sense from the community. And also maybe broadening it a little bit, because again, if you don't want to do it between 5 and 8, when do you want to do it? You know, the weekend? Is it 9 to 5? Is it after 8? I mean, as we've already discussed at some length, there is really no sweet spot. So I think getting a sense from the community is important, but I'm not sure if by doing by ballot is the most appropriate way.
Well, it seems like people should be able to discuss it, just like we are now. I mean, we're talking about changing this standard of meetings that has been going on since the dawn of Peterborough. So I would think that people should be able to actually talk about it.
Well, to be clear, we're asking, we're not just changing it, we're restricting it to like a very narrow band, and I think that that's needs a lot of discussion, because, you know, in order to expand it for the families who have small children, you're now excluding a whole other group of people, so, you know, I think everybody should have a chance to raise their hand.
But the issue is the discussion is going to be happening within that time space.
If I can,
Please.
so I think there's an accommodation that could be met as a single mother who attended every single town meeting since 2006 in my capacity as an employee. I know it is possible for folks to attend during those hours. And to do so, it is sometimes easier to make sure that the voting is done by ballot at town meeting. That way, parents can come in, drop in a yes or no at the time that the vote opens. It'll stay open for an hour. Parents will sometimes switch off if that is easier for them, if one wants to be participating in the discussion. The meetings, you know, are recorded, so they can be seen later, of course. But I think that, you know, there is an accommodation that can be met so that you can still have the discussion and the vote and still keep it open to as many people as possible all on the same night.
And couldn't we take them out of order and put 21 at the end?
No,
That night?
because 20 is a moneyed article, so it needs to go before the non-moneyed article.
No, sorry, I meant when we discuss it at open session, we could discuss Article 20, then we could discuss Article 22, and then do 21 at the end of the evening, so.
You can reorder these any way you want right now. So because the warrants will be done tonight, but it's not done.
Before we get too excited, when historically has the vote opened prior to 8 o'clock anyways? Never once. So, I guess we got that covered. Since there's an 8 o'clock limit on it, the vote has never happened before.
So that was my point. If we discuss the first two, that'll take the first hour. By 8 o'clock, we'll get to the one that has the blackout time on it. And then we could be discussing that from 8 p.m. on. And it's a fair concern that people can't make it at that time.
Sure.
Sounds like a good compromise.
Right? So if we made 21, 22, 22, 21,
Sure.
that would, the numbers wouldn't, and then we definitely have to discuss them in the order they're numbered.
That's how they will be introduced, yes.
Is there anything
Is
else?
that okay?
If the budget doesn't pass, then we would have to discuss the budget.
There's awards. You can draw out the award portion of our program.
Recognition.
Recognition.
Who would be recognizing?
Our new elected officials.
Okay,
So I think we've come to a consensus.
Yeah,
All three.
change the order.
fair enough.
Change the order, but all three appear.
Do you need a motion or just our, Mary? Yeah.
A procedural question about number 22. If a proposed article cannot be legally enforced and in fact violates someone's personal privacy, can it appear on a town ballot?
So it can, because it is by petition, it must appear on the ballot. There is no mechanism to prevent a petition warrant article from appearing on a town warrant on the vote. However, if an illegal article is passed by town meeting, it cannot be enforced. It cannot be enacted or enforced.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we need to make a motion or just you have our consensus to put this on the open session?
Yeah, the consensus is fine.
Yeah, people should have the right to discuss this for or against, yeah. All right. Good. All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We have some minutes from February 28th and March 7th. I'd make a motion that we approve those as written. Thank you, Ally, those are great. For the select board.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the budget committee, was part of the plan. Both.
Yes, both.
Both.
So the Budget Committee, who agreed to adopt the minutes submitted for the last meeting, raise your hand and say, indicate aye. Those opposed? Andrew, what did you say, aye?
I was aye, sorry.
All right, so it's 7 ayes. 8 ayes, yeah.
All right, Mr. Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I love that.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Good conversation.
Switch.